This story is brought to you by Petals and Pride, where every petal tells a tale, and every tale celebrates pride. Join us as we embark on heartfelt journeys, discovering the beauty of love, life, and extraordinary in the everyday. Together, we bloom with stories that inspire, uplift, and bring the rainbow of human experiences to life.
The silence of Jacob King. Jacob King had always known he was different, even before he had the words to describe it. He was raised in an Amish community in rural Pennsylvania, where undone dictated every aspect of life: what you wore, what you believed, and who you were meant to be. There were no words for people like him, no sermons that spoke to his struggles, only the constant reminder that deviation from God's design led to ruin. By 18 he was baptized as expected. By 20 he was engaged to Anna Stoltzfus, a quiet girl with downcast eyes and steady hands. The match was sensible. A God-fearing man and a God-fearing woman fulfilling their purpose. But Jacob's heart had never ached for Anna. It had ached for Isaac. Isaac Yoder had been his best friend since they were children, their days filled with the rhythm of work, plowing fields, mending fences, chopping wood. Their bond had been deep, a closeness that was tolerated among young boys but expected to fade as they became men. Only Jacob's feelings never did. The warmth of Isaac's laughter, the accidental brush of their hands, the moments stolen in the barn loft, all of it became a quiet, unspoken longing. Then came that night at the creek. It was midsummer, the air thick and still. They had finished a long day of work and wandered down to the water, as they often did when the evenings stretched long. The others had gone home, but Jacob and Isaac lingered, sitting on the worn wooden dock that jutted over the slow-moving creek. The water reflected the moonlight in ripples, insects humming in the distance. Isaac tossed a pebble into the water, watching the rings spread. "Do you ever think, maybe we were meant to be different?" Jacob froze, his pulse thrumming. He turned his head, finding Isaac already looking at him. There was something in his expression, something vulnerable, something waiting. Jacob didn't answer right away. Instead, he let his bare foot trail through the water, focusing on the sensation, grounding himself. "Different how?" he finally asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. Isaac swallowed, his fingers flexing against the dock. "I don't know. He hesitated, then let out a shaky breath. "I think about things I shouldn't. About things that aren't right." Jacob felt his heartbeat quicken. It wasn't fear. It wasn't dread. It was recognition. For so long he had believed he was alone in this, that no one else carried the same weight. But here was Isaac, sitting beside him in the dark, voicing the thoughts Jacob had buried for years. Jacob turned his gaze back to the water. He couldn't look at Isaac, not now, not when the air between them had changed. "I think about it too," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Isaac let out a shaky breath. And then, a hand brushed against his. It was light, hesitant. It could have been an accident. But neither of them moved away. The world around them felt impossibly still. The crickets, the rustling leaves, the lapping water, it all faded beneath the sound of their breathing. Then Isaac shifted, closing the space between them. Jacob could smell the faint scent of sweat and hay on his skin, could feel the heat radiating from him even in the cool night air. When their lips met, it was uncertain at first. A tentative press, a test of something both had long feared but never spoken aloud. But then the hesitation broke, and the kiss deepened, years of longing pouring into that stolen moment beneath the stars. They moved together, hands searching, bodies pressing closer. Every touch, every whispered breath was a defiance of the life they had been given. They knew they should stop. That this was something they could never speak of, never acknowledge, never let happen again. But in that moment, desire outweighed duty. When it was over, they lay beside each other on the dock, staring at the sky. The weight of what they had done settled between them like the humidity in the air, thick and inescapable. "We can't do this," Isaac whispered, his voice shaking. Jacob swallowed hard, staring up at the stars. "I know." They dressed in silence, their fingers fumbling, their hearts pounding. When they left the creek that night, something between them had changed forever. A week later, Isaac was gone. No note, no goodbye, just an empty seat at the Sunday service, and a family left humiliated by his disappearance. "He's lost to the world now," Jacob's father muttered over supper, shaking his head. "Best we forget him." But Jacob never forgot. For years he did as he was expected. He married Anna, fathered children, worked the land. He was a good husband, a good father, a good Amish man. But at night, when Anna was asleep and the house was still, he would stare up at the wooden beams of their bedroom and wonder where Isaac had gone. If he had found peace. If he had found love. if he had found what Jacob never could. Years later, after his own son had married and started his own family, Jacob took his horse and buggy into town for supplies. As he stepped into the general store, he nearly lost his breath. Isaac was standing at the counter. Older, dressed in English clothes, his beard neatly trimmed. He turned and saw Jacob, and for a moment, neither of them moved. The weight of all those lost years settled between them. Jacob wanted to say something, to ask if he had been happy, if he had been loved, if he had ever thought about that night by the creek. But he couldn't. He was still bound by silence, by duty, by a life that was never truly his. So he nodded, and Isaac nodded back. Then Jacob turned and walked away, back to the world that had claimed him. It wasn't until years later, when Jacob was old, when the weight of time sat heavy on his bones, that he heard the news. Isaac Yoder had passed away. His obituary was short, nothing more than a few lines in an English newspaper. But there was one detail that stuck with Jacob more than any other. Isaac had been survived by a man, his partner of 30 years. Jacob sat on the wooden porch of his home, the fields golden in the late afternoon sun, his grandchildren laughing in the distance. He had lived a good life, a life of obedience, of sacrifice. But as he held the newspaper in his trembling hands, a single tear slipped down his weathered cheek. Isaac had found love, and Jacob had let it slip away. The weight of it settled deep in his chest, as heavy as the silence he had carried all his life. And in the end, as he closed his eyes against the setting sun, Jacob realized he had spent a lifetime praying for forgiveness. But what he really needed was permission to have lived. But it was too late. The creek had long since dried up.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey today. We hope you enjoyed the latest episode of Petals and Pride. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update from us. Also, be sure to join our Facebook group Petals and Pride. We love hearing from you. Let us know your thoughts and what you'd like to see next. Until next time, take care and stay proud.